What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Talkin ATL Hawks podcast. We are here for episode 80. It is our official first episode post Atlanta Hawks season since our first round elimination to the New York Knicks. As always, I am joined by Chase Jefferson, my brother, now my other brother from another mother. John Joyner is unfortunately unable to join us today for this episode of Talking ATL Hawks. And this one's going to be pretty short and sweet. We're just going to be live reacting, giving our live thoughts and reactions to the NBA draft lottery, which kicks off here in about a minute. And before we officially get started, I do want to officially say happy Mother's Day to all the lovely mothers out there who do such an incredible job, which includes our very own. And I'm excited. A lot of anticipation for a top 10 pick for the Atlanta Hawks. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, really exciting day for Hawks fans. You always love the draft lottery, especially when your team actually has a dog in the fight. And this is like a special draft lottery for the Atlanta Hawks. This is one of those rare occasions where you're an NBA team that could both compete for a title, but also have a chance of a really high draft pick. Now, the draft lottery is officially underway. They're doing the little introduction right now. Tune in to ABC, and obviously you're going to see this whenever by the time it's over, so there's no point in saying that. But just a little recap on the Atlanta Hawks situation here. Because of the trade rights we gave away previously, the way the Hawks are situated is we are going to get the worst, or I guess the highest, of the Milwaukee and New Orleans pick. Now, most likely that would be New Orleans pick because, of course, they have the higher odds of a higher pick than Milwaukee. But if somehow Milwaukee gets a higher pick than New Orleans, then that would be our pick. So this is one of the drafts where it doesn't really matter if you're 1 or if you're 15. This draft class is so loaded that if you just have just a top of the ceiling pick, there's not really a scenario that you could go wrong here.
Right, right. And yeah, the Atlanta Hawks, we saw the direction that our GM and Quinn Snyder have kind of built towards the second half of the season. And we all know the biggest piece for the Atlanta Hawks that's still missing is a true point guard, but B, a true defensive big. So there is a lot of different routes and directions that the Hawks can go depending on what pick they get and who's available at that pick. So refresh everybody's minds before we get started and we actually see how this unveils. To go over the percentage of who has the highest odds for each pick, we'll go from top to bottom for the top 10 here. Starting with the Washington Wizards at number 1, who had the highest odds for the first overall pick at 14%. And then you got the Pacers at second, also at 14%. You've got the Nets at 3, also at 14%. And then you've got the Jazz at 4 at 11.5%. And then at 5 is the Sacramento Kings, also at 11.5%. The Memphis Grizzlies at 9%. Then you have the Atlanta Hawks via New Orleans, 6.8%. So that's New Orleans pick. That's going to be Atlanta's at 6.8%. Then you've got the Dallas Mavericks at 8 at 6.7%. Then you've got the Chicago Bulls at 9, which is 4.5%. And then you've got the Milwaukee Bucks, which actually has a 0% chance for a first round pick, but a 13.9% chance for a top 4 pick, 2nd through 4. So that's how the top 10 is shaping up. So there's really not a high probability that we're going to end up with Milwaukee's pick. It's going to be about a 99.9% chance our pick is going to go via New Orleans.
Now, the actual reveal begins in about 13 and a half minutes. So that'll give us plenty of time to kind of run over some potential scenarios that the Atlanta Hawks could find themselves in. And if we find themselves within the certain scenarios, we'll kind of debate and talk over what the now, I kind of want to just start off by reviewing some. This was some news that was released a couple of days ago that I think is definitely worth mentioning, not just for the Atlanta Hawks' sake, but for anyone who's participating in the lottery's sake. And that revolves around one of the a potential top three, maybe even top two pick, and Darren Peterson of the Kansas Jayhawks. Now, if you remember last year, there was some very big controversy around his play and his attitude because there were many instances where it appeared that he would get very fatigued and or just got very lazy. It seemed like, especially in blowout situations, he was wanting to exit early. He wasn't trying in a lot of possessions, and there was a lot of back and forth between him and Bill Self. Now, me especially, I know I've mentioned on the podcast, especially when we were kind of reviewing and doing our first mock draft, I was not a big fan of Peterson, not anything to do with what he is as a player. I love him as a player. I love his skill set. I just don't like a guy who could be a locker room cancer. And to me, Darren Peterson, I always viewed could be a potential threat in that case. But news released a couple of days ago that turns out before a lot of games, he would pump his body with a high level of creatine, and his body was over a certain percentage of I don't I didn't get into the logistics. I'm not a scientist. I don't understand the logistics exactly, but basically he was just pumping his body with a high dangerous level of creatine where basically his body would shut down on him when he ran a he played a long time. And actually, the injury that he faced in the middle of the season was not actually a physical injury like people thought. It turns out he just had to go to the hospital because his body was basically shutting down on him. Now, why they didn't just go up front and say that to begin with, I have no idea. But Angie, do you have any thoughts on that situation?
Yeah, it's a tricky situation, and like you said, Pearson as a player, he's dangerous. I mean, what he showcased at Kansas, he can take over a game in the snap of a finger, and he's got a get big clutch factor to him. He doesn't get nervous in big situations. He's true to his game. He's very confident. But you've got to look at off-court personality just as much as on-court personality. Because, like you said, Chase, we've seen it with a lot of athletes. Zion Williamson, for example, on the court, he's a freaking monster, but he did not take care of himself off the court, and that's
Ben
why he has
Simmons.
not been able to reach that potential that we saw him with Duke. So it's off the court matters just as much, if not more, than what happens on the court. Because if you're
And
not
Ben
doing that,
Simmons, I said before you move on, I just want to say Ben Simmons is a great example of that too, because it's not just the physical health; it's the mental health too. Ben Simmons was supposed to be the next LeBron James, according to some people. And on the court he had all the talent, but off the court he didn't take care of himself mentally. He got depressed. He wanted to take seasons off to build his mental health, which it never really seemed like he truly did, and it turned out to basically bury his career.
yeah, it's if you're not doing the right things off the court, what happens? Your level of play on the court is going to be greatly affected by that. So that's the number one concern with Peterson. Now, obviously, he's very young. I mean, he's maturing. He's going through his stages of life. He's going to go through these trials and errors, and he's got plenty of time to grow as a person so he can flourish to the best possible value of himself on the court. So it's not like this is an all hope is lost kind of situation. Peterson is far from gone here. If he can just handle himself a little bit better in preparation to these games, there's not going to be a problem. Not going to be a problem at all. So his value is still at the roof. Like he could go top three, even top two, and would not surprise me at all because he's that good on the court. But it's going to be interesting to see how that plays into the GM's mindset when they're trying to select these picks. Because even though the risk may not be dangerous, it is a risk at the end of the day because we've seen it happen to several teams before with these top 10 picks. And you've got to be careful. You've got to look at everything in the whole grand scheme of things. Now, I'm sure that Peterson has really grown and matured over the offseason since the Kansas season came to an end. Played in the March Madness and the Big 12 tournament for Kansas, had no issues there, played great. So I think he's already trending in the right direction. So if you were to ask
And
me, I do understand the concerns, but I think he's going to be just fine.
And another player that I think we can kind of look at that could be that has a high risk factor as well. A lot of people have him top five. Exactly. Well, matter of fact, have him top five on our draft board is the big man out of North Carolina, Caleb Wilson, who preseason heading into the college basketball season, many thought that he could even be the number one pick or number two right behind Boozer. Now, of course, that order has shifted. The top five is not exactly what was predicted beginning of the season, which tends to happen, but Caleb Wilson does still have top five talent. But because of the brutal season ending injury he faced about midway through the college basketball season, a lot of people wonder what kind of health factor, what kind of health risk is factored into taking him that high. Because of course at North Carolina, especially preseason when North Carolina just had that loaded slate, that hard schedule, he showcased exactly the skills that everybody knew he had. A great rim protector, a great rebound, a great floor facilitator too, can run plays really well. He communicates with his team. He's really good at building chemistry, and he's just everything you want with a guy with a great defensive presence. But like I said, with this injury, how much time is he going to need once he gets back to playing to be back at 100%? How would that alter a team's future as someone who's in the deep rebuilding stage, like, I don't know, Washington, Utah, one of those teams? You can throw someone else out there that has a high pick of getting or high chance of getting a top five pick. They're going to want a player right away that can make an instant impact. And I'm just wondering, Andrew, if you want to step in and answer this. If there's a certain timetable for Caleb Wilson to get back to 100%, and if he can get back to 100% consistently, do you think that's something that's certainly running through GM's minds, or are they just saying, hey, it's Caleb Wilson at the end of the day? Is anyone seeing this as a big risk at all?
I don't think so. It definitely shows that he has a lot of heart because not a lot of people know, but during the season, before he officially got rolled out for the rest of the season, he already pre-fractured that right hand that got ultimately refractured, which is what took him out for the remainder of the season. So he was already playing with a semi-injured right hand, and his numbers were through the roof, Chase. You said it all. You explained his style of play perfectly. Now, I don't think that it's just a right hand fracture. It's not like the injury was brutal. Like, had it have happened in December or January, he would have been just fine to play in the tournament. But it happened right before the ACC tournament started, and that's not enough time to heal for March Madness. Now, they didn't make it far enough into March Madness for there to be even speculations of him returning. But no, he's going to be completely fine, completely healthy by the time summer workouts begin, I believe. I think we're going to see him flourish during the summer league and show no signs of slowing down because of his previous injury. So it's nothing brutal. It's nothing major. I think the timing of it was just really inconvenient. But in the grand scheme of things, nothing GMs have to worry about. I think he's going to be just fine.
Right. I'm right there with you, Andrew. I think you said it perfectly. The only concern that I have is I don't know. I want to know how a GM of a team that's in a full rebuild is looking at this right now, because they're going to want a guy that's going to make an instant impact right away. Now, Caleb Wilson has not come back to true basketball form since his injury. I know he took a lot of time in rehab, which you have to do, of course, but he hasn't had a lot of on-court play from what I understand. I'm just wondering how much time is he going to need to get back to the Caleb Wilson we all know he is. And I don't think it's going to be something that's factored in too deeply just because it was a right hand fracture, even though it's severe enough to take him out for the season. I just don't think that's an injury that's really true to maybe one like that's going to take away a guy's game for a long period of time. I just don't think it's that type of injury. So the timer is officially up. It looks like we are officially getting underway. They have all the executives and representatives for the respective teams at their podiums. Going through the numbers here, I mean, the draft lottery is just one of the most. I love how the NBA does their draft lottery because it really is up in the air either way. I mean, because shoot, going back to 2 years ago where the Atlanta Hawks had less than a 1% chance to get the number one pick. And when nobody thought they had even a shot to do so, their lottery ball was pulled for the number one pick, which led us to get Zachary Ricochet. Now, unfortunately, that was a draft class that was just weak from top to bottom. That is not the case here, ladies and gentlemen. So if you get the number one pick, I think AJ is undoubtedly the first choice. I wouldn't be too surprised if someone takes Boozer, depending on who the team is, but it's going to be AJ or Boozer, or maybe Derek Peterson, but I don't think you pass up on AJ if you have the number one pick, truthfully.
Yeah, and in turn, it gives the loaded slate we have for these players that are going to be in the first round. Gives the Atlanta Hawks a lot of flexibility of what they can do with their pick. Now, if we do end up with the 7 through 10 pick, you've got a lot of different options here, and it all depends on how Atlanta stands in this draft. Because of course, you got to remember there's a team option for Jonathan Kuminga, a lot of ups and downs. And then CJ McCollum is hitting free agency. Now, there's a lot of expectations that we're going to re-sign CJ McCollum. But if the pick somehow happens to jump into the top 4, that makes a lot of room for that player in the rotation to become a roster building priority. So Ansi Sela has even went on record to say that the Hawks do not plan to skip steps building out what would like to make them both building out and would like to make both their first round picks. So what that means is that because Atlanta Hawks not only have this potential top 10 or top 5 pick, we also have that pick later in the first round, and Ansi Sela wants to utilize both picks. So do not expect the Atlanta Hawks to trade off either of their picks, because he understands the depth of this draft class and the priority the Hawks have into making that next step for the future. Now, you got to look at a guy there's a tons of true guards that we can go with if we want to go that true point guard route. If we do end up with the number 7 pick, which ESPN projects, Kingston Flemings would be an incredible hands-on guy for the Atlanta Hawks. But then, of course, you've got other guys like you can mix in the backcourt, like Mikael Brown Jr., who's a superior shooter for Louisville. And I think he would also draw a lot of consideration for the 7th pick. But then again, if it happened, I think the Atlanta Hawks going point guard or big is going to depend on where we end up in the draft. If we get a top 5 pick, I think we go big, hands down. Or unless there's a guy like Acuff that's available, we're not going to pass up on him. But if we go 7 to 10, somewhere in that range, I think we get either Kingston Flemings or Brown Jr. from Louisville.
All right. Looks like it's about that time. Of course, all the representatives are up at the podium. Anse Salem is the one representing the Atlanta Hawks. The first note is pulled, and the Charlotte Hornets, expectedly, dropped to 14. I don't know why I got so excited. They did have the lowest chance of the number 1 pick. The Miami Heat go right above them at pick number 13. That's Alonzo Mourning representing the Heat. And then Oklahoma City, thank the Lord, does not get a top 10 pick. They fall to number 12.
They're going to end up with somebody insane at the 12th pick because of how low this draft class is.
That's what we were talking about. If you have a top 15 pick, either way, you can't go much wrong. Golden State draws the 11th seed, and then it looks like I think they're going to signs a 2-year extension, a little unexpectedly. Milwaukee Bucks get the 10th pick. So the worst the Atlanta Hawks can get is 10 now, which is fine. We're within the top 10. That gives me a lot of hope. New Orleans is going to go higher. Milwaukee gets 9. The Hawks have found themselves within the top 8. The Bulls. No, wait. Did they say Bulls 8?
Bulls 8.
No, I don't think so. No, the Bulls got a top 4 pick.
No.
Okay, the Atlanta Hawks just got number 8, which is kind of within the range we were expecting. I was hoping for a little higher. Say, Andrew, that's perfect, though, for Flemings or Brown, like you were just talking about.
Right.
Wow, Kings get 7. That's brutal. That Sacramento's not getting a top 4 pick.
Grizzlies get a top four pick themselves. So the top four is going to consist of Chicago and Grizzlies right
Wow.
now, and then the Nets fall to 6. They had the third highest odds to get the first overall pick.
Vince Carter's not happy about that at all. We have our friend Terry, who's a big Chicago Bulls fan. He's texting right now. He's predicting that the Bulls are going to get the number 2 pick, which it could be well within their favor. And then LA finishes off the 5 through 14 range. The Clippers getting the 5 spots. So the number 1 seed is either going to Chicago, Memphis, Utah, or Washington.
And there's John Wall representing the Clippers there. Or is that the Wizards? Which one is he representing there?
John Wall's representing the Wizards.
Okay, that makes a little bit more sense.
Okay. So we have the 5 through 14 figured out, and we know who now has the odds to get the top or the number 1 pick. But either way, top 4. If anything surprising for you, Andrew, I'm going to start off. If I'm a Sacramento Kings fan or an Indiana Pacers fan, I am sick to my stomach that I'm left out of the top 4.
Yeah, and that kind of goes for the Pacers and the Nets as well, because the Pacers.
That's what I said. I said the Kings and the Pacers.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear the Pacers. I just heard the Kings. But yeah, then I'll just throw in the Nets in that mix as well. They had the third highest odds to go first in that to get the first overall pick, and they also had a 52.1% chance to get at least. Goodness gracious, a top 4 pick, and they fall all the way down to 6, which is brutal for the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, I say brutal, but then again, it's not like they're going to miss out on a potential superstar at the 6th spot. Top 5, like, I don't know, for example, Keaton Wagler out of Illinois. We talked about Flemings and Brown Jr. I mean, you've got guys like Braden Burris as well, Nate Emmett, Kareem Lopez, like Kareem Lopez. There's going to be a lot of potential stars for the remainder outside the top 4, going all the way down to pick number 20, to be quite honest with you. But it still hurts because I know the Nets and the Pacers, they want guys like Cam Boozer, Peterson, Acuff, AJ. Those guys are going to be top 5 easy. So you're not going to see those outside the top 5 expectingly. I mean, that we've seen some crazy curveballs in the NBA draft before, but yeah, definitely some surprises there. I'm surprised to see the Clippers get a top 5 pick. I was not expecting them to land top 5 there. So that's a big win for the Clippers, who have an uncertain future themselves. So yeah, it's gearing up to be a crazy draft. But Chase, what are your thoughts on the Atlanta Hawks going 8? I know it's expected, but to see it officially laid out in stone, what's kind of circling through your mind right now?
I mean, I was hoping that maybe we could get lucky and get within the top 6. But I mean, 8's fine. Like I said, that's what we've been expecting for a long time. I said on the podcast before, I am sold on Mikael Brown Jr. out of Louisville. You know, Florida State fans, we were big into the ACC, so I watched a lot of Mikael Brown Jr., and I just love how he moves within the court and finds an open shot, creates space for himself, and of course, he's a lethal shooter. Big piece for the Cardinals. Now, and the reason why I think this works so well for the Atlanta Hawks format is because I think that was still a missing piece, especially last season. Gabe Vincent did a great job filling in this hole, but we need somebody else coming off the bench that could be a consistent shooter. We saw that as a big killer in the playoff series against the New York Knicks. You got to have a 3-point shot in today's NBA, in the starting lineup and off the bench, and especially off the bench. That was just a recipe the Atlanta Hawks couldn't conjure up. And I think Mikael Brown could do a great job filling in that void. And I think it fits perfectly too with our guard depth because, of course, they're going to have Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who continues to grow. Dyson Daniels is a perfect defensive guard for the starting 5. But then the guard depth, once we get to the bench, is just not strong. CJ McCollum, yeah, he was great, but I mean, who says he's going to be on the team next year? And if he is, he's not a long-term guy, of course, because of his age. So we need another guard off the bench that could grow and help the guard depth just a little bit more. So I think that makes the most sense. And I would rely on Onsi Salem holding off on a big for this draft, especially since we had the 8th pick. And I would rather him go out and get someone like Hartstein, like we talked about in the previous episode, during free agency to fill in that defensive big void. So Mikael Brown's my pick here.
Why not?
I would hold off on the big.
Why not the best of both worlds? Because we still had that pick later in the draft around 21,
Yeah.
22. So why not the best of both worlds? Why not you get your guard in Kingston Flemings or Brown Jr. with the 8th pick and then go get a sneaky big in the last round and then also capitalize off free agency?
We could. No. Yeah, certainly. No, for sure.
Yeah, I think this works out great in our favor because the guard play is definitely going to be a priority in the top 10. The Bulls just got the 4th pick.
Yeah, pick number 4. Terry's not going to like that.
It's still a top 4 pick, though.
Memphis number 3. Memphis number 3. So it's either going to be Utah or Washington to get number 1. The Utah Jazz get number 2, and the Washington Wizards secure the number 1 pick in the 2026 NBA draft.
In the same season after acquiring guys of the likes of Trae Young and Anthony Davis, who are both going to be in full health, everyone hopes to start off a new season. They're going to they could bring in a guy like AJ, Cam Boozer, Peterson, Acuff. I don't think they'd go Acuff or Peterson. I think they're likely to go after a guy like Cam Boozer or AJ because they also have Trey Jones that was balling out for them. They have Alex Sarr that was balling out for them. If you are a Washington Wizards fan, which if you are, I don't know why you're on this podcast, but welcome. But what a time to be alive for the Washington Wizards. And I could not be happier for Trae Young, man. I mean, I hate that he's on the Wizards, who is a Southeastern Division rival, but I do want Trae Young to succeed in some extent. And man, he's got a lot to look forward to. So
I'm gonna tell you this.
Wow.
I'm going to tell you this. AJ would be a lucky man to go to Washington because think about who he's going to have around him. Think about a guy that plays on the Washington Wizards.
Chase?
Hey, sorry. John Joyner actually called just now. I don't think he knows we're doing the podcast right now. I'll call him back here in a little bit. But think about a guy that should be on the Washington Wizards next year.
He's calling me. Yo, Joyner, you're live on the podcast right now.
Okay, someone just text me. What pick do we get?
So the Hawks got the number 8 overall pick, and the number 1 overall pick went to the Washington Wizards.
Okay, well that's good for them, though. Honestly, seriously, that's good for them. That's what they needed. So
sorry,
Trae Young, Trey Johnson, DeBesta, who the forward is?
Probably Alex Sarr, and then Anthony Davis.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, think about how good this is for AJ if he goes to Washington. His skill set has been multiple times compared to Anthony Davis, like a more versatile Anthony Davis. So imagine if AJ going to Washington has time to sit behind and learn from Anthony Davis, take that time to build his game to the NBA level. 2-3 years from now, AJ could easily be what Anthony Davis was back on the New Orleans Pelicans, just more versatile and faster. And to me, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
Okay, so who got 2 and 3 and 4?
So to give you the entire scope of the top 10, you've got the Wizards at 1, the Jazz at 2, Grizzlies at 3, Bulls at 4, Clippers at 5,
Nets at 6,
Kings at 7, Hawks at 8, Mavericks at 9, Bucks at 10, and that's your top 10.
You're giving the Kings are at 7?
The Kings did get a 7th overall pick.
It is brutal that Sacramento, Indiana, and Brooklyn all fell in the top 4. That is brutal.
They're probably going Acuff. They're probably going to go Acuff. So we're just going to miss out on them.
I don't know. I think Acuff's going top 5. I can't imagine Acuff falling out of the top 5.
Dude, Acuff could be going to LA.
So 4 and 5 is the Bulls at 4 and the Clippers at 5, which I could see either one of them going Acuff.
The Cougars don't need A-Cups. They got Darius. They got Garland.
Yeah, but Garland's, I don't know. I feel like A-Cup's probably going to go to the Bulls, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I feel like A-Cup's definitely going to the Bulls.
Okay, yeah. Well, is Terry on with y'all, or don't get someone else?
What was that?
Who's on with y'all? Is it just Terry, or is it just y'all two, or does Terry join y'all?
No, it's just me and Chase. But our buddy Terry's been texting us.
Okay.
Yeah, he's pretty stoked about a top 4 pick. So,
yeah, he should be. He should be. That's why.
Yeah.
So, in terms of the Bulls, got top 4.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, I'm at the Renaissance Festival still, so I just got signal again.
Yeah, no worries, man. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so someone just texted me that we got a top 8 pick, so I didn't know what pick exactly we got. So that's why I called. I didn't know if y'all were or not.
Yeah, we're recording right now. Yes, sir.
I'll
see you, brother.
Terry, the Chicago Bulls fan, has just made his prediction, and he thinks the Bulls are going to draft Caleb Wilson, which I think would be a perfect pick for Chicago, considering that they're one of the smallest teams in the NBA, and they desperately need a big. And obviously, he's the best big on the board.
So the mock draft, according to ESPN, is AJ at 1 to the Wizards, Peterson at 2 to the Jazz, Boozer at 3 to the Grizzlies, Wilson, like you said, to the Bulls at 4, and then Keaton Wagler to the Clippers.
So that be A-Cup to Sacramento?
Going to Sacramento, or potentially, I don't know, either 6, 7, or 8. If A-Cup somehow falls to 8, which I highly doubt that's going to happen, that would be nuts. But yeah, guys, that's our live reaction right there to the 2026 NBA Draft Lottery. We've got some surprises in there for sure. The Atlanta Hawks, not so much a surprise because we've been talking it up the last few episodes. We're going to be either in that 7 to 10 range, and that's exactly where we landed. But the top 4, a lot of unexpected teams in there. And then, of course, a lot of expected teams have fallen out of the top 4, a lot lower than what they wanted. But that's the lottery for you guys. Even when you think what you know something's going to happen and how it's going to shake up, the lottery's got some other ideas. It's always got their twists and turns every year, and just more of the same, guys. But Chase, do you have any closing thoughts, remarks before we wrap up this live reaction video?
I don't. Just do know that now that we have the official draft order released, that probably next week, myself, Andrew, and John will probably be back, and we'll probably kick off the offseason doing an official mock draft, a more organized one. Now that we have the legit layout, that will give us a bigger idea and a more realistic understanding of how this 2026 draft can play out.
Yes, sir. But yeah, guys, until that episode comes, I do want to thank you all for joining us. As for Chase, me, and then Joyner, who made a pop-up appearance, we will see you guys for the next episode of Talkin ATL Hawks. Got a lot to get into now.